Canto 18. Dante now finds himself in the eighth circle, called Malabulge, evil ditches, the upper half of the hell of the fraudulent and malicious. The eighth circle is a large funnel of stone shaped like an amphitheatre around which run a series of 10 deep, narrow, concentric ditches or trenches called bulge, singular, bulger. Within these ditches are punished those guilty of simple fraud. From the foot of the great cliff to the well, which forms the neck of the funnel, are large spurs of rock, like umbrella ribs or spokes, which serve as bridges over the 10 ditches. Dorothy L. Sayers writes that the Malabulge is the image of the city in corruption, the progressive disintegration of every social relationship, personal and public, sexuality, ecclesiastical and civil office, language, ownership, counsel, authority, psychic influence, and material interdependence. All the media of the community's interchange are perverted and falsified. Bulger 1 Panderers and seducers. These sinners make 2 files, one along either bank of the ditch, and march quickly in opposite directions while being whipped by horned demons for eternity. They deliberately exploited the passions of others and so drove them to serve their own interests, are themselves driven and scourged. Dante makes reference to a recent traffic rule developed for the Jubilee year of 1300 in Rome. In the group of Panderers, the poets notice Venedico Cacciani Maco, a Bolognese Guelph who sold his own sister Gasola to the Marchesi di Este. In the group of seducers, Virgil points out Jason, the Greek hero who led the Argonauts to fetch the golden fleece from Aeetes, king of Colchis. He gained the help of the king's daughter, Medea, by seducing and marrying her only to later desert her for Creusa. Jason had previously seduced Hypsipyle when the Argonauts landed at Lemnos on their way to Colchis, but abandoned her, alone and pregnant. Bulger 2 Flatterers. These also exploited other people, this time abusing and corrupting language to play upon others' desires and fears. They are steeped in excrement, representative of the false flatteries they told on earth, as they howl and fight amongst themselves. Alessio Intermini of Lucca and Thais are seen here. Canto 19. Bulger 3 Simoniacs. Dante now forcefully expresses his condemnation of those who committed simony, or the sale of ecclesiastic favors and offices, and therefore made money for themselves out of what belongs to God. Rapacious ones, who take the things of God, that ought to be the brides of righteousness, and make them fornicate for gold and silver. The time has come to let the trumpet sound, for you. Quote, the sinners are placed head downwards in round, tube-like holes within the rock. Debased mockeries of baptismal fonts, with flames burning the soles of their feet. The heat of the fire is proportioned to their guilt. The simile of baptismal fonts gives Dante an incidental opportunity to clear his name of an accusation of malicious damage to the font at the baptistry of San Giovanni. Simon Magus, who offered gold in exchange for holy power to Saint Peter and after whom the sin is named, is mentioned here, although Dante does not encounter him. One of the sinners, Pope Nicholas III, must serve in the hellish baptism by fire from his death in 1280 until 1303, the arrival in hell of Pope Boniface VIII, who will take his predecessor's place in the stone tube until 1314, when he will in turn be replaced by Pope Clement V, a puppet of King Philip IV of France who moved the Holy See to Avignon, ushering in the Avignon papacy. 1309–77. Dante delivers a denunciation of simoniacal corruption of the Church. Canto XX. Bolger 4 sorcerers. In the middle of the bridge of the fourth Bolger, Dante looks down at the souls of fortune-tellers, diviners, astrologers, and other false prophets. The punishment of those who attempted to usurp God's prerogative by prying into the future is to have their heads twisted around on their bodies. In this horrible contortion of the human form, these sinners are compelled to walk backwards for eternity, blinded by their own tears. John Chardy writes, thus, those who sought to penetrate the future cannot even see in front of themselves. They attempted to move themselves forward in time. So must they go backwards through all eternity. And as the arts of sorcery are a distortion of God's law, so are their bodies distorted in hell. While referring primarily to attempts to see into the future by forbidden means, this also symbolizes the twisted nature of magic in general. Dante weeps in pity, and Virgil rebukes him, saying, "Here pity only lives when it is dead. For who can be more impious than he who links God's judgment to passivity?" Virgil gives a lengthy explanation of the founding of his native city of Mantova. Among the sinners in this circle are King Amphiaraus, one of the 7 against Thebes. Foreseeing his death in the war, he sought to avert it by hiding from battle but died in an earthquake trying to flee. And 2 Theban soothsayers, Tiresias. In Ovid's Metamorphoses 324–331, Tiresias was transformed into a woman upon striking 2 coupling serpents with his rod. 7 years later, he was changed back to a man in an identical encounter. And his daughter Manto. Also in this Bolger are Arruns, an Etruscan soothsayer who predicted the Caesar's victory in the Roman Civil War in Lucan's Pharsalia I. 585–638. The Greek augur Eurypylus. Astrologers Michael Scott. Served at Frederick II's court at Palermo. And Guido Bonatti. Served the court of Guido da Montefeltro. And Asdente, a shoemaker and soothsayer from Parma. Virgil implies that the moon is now setting over the Pillars of Hercules in the west. The time is just after 6 a.m. The dawn of Holy Saturday. Canto 21. Bolger 5 Barators. Corrupt politicians, who made money by trafficking in public offices, the political analogue of the simoniacs, are immersed in a lake of boiling pitch, which represents the sticky fingers and dark secrets of their corrupt deals. They are guarded by demons called the Malebranche, evil claws, who tear them to pieces with claws and grappling hooks if they catch them above the surface of the pitch. The poets observe a demon arrive with a grafting senator of Lucca and throw him into the pitch, where the demons set upon him. Virgil secures safe conduct from the leader of the Malebranche, named Malacoda, Evil Tale. He informs them that the bridge across the 6th Bolger has collapsed as a result of the earthquake that shook hell at the death of Christ in 34 AD. But that there is another path further on. He sends a squad of demons led by Barbaricha to escort them safely, based on details in this canto. And if Christ's death is taken to have occurred at exactly noon, the time is now 7 a.m. of Holy Saturday. The demons provide some satirical black comedy in the last line of Canto 21. The sign for their march is provided by a fart. And he had made a trumpet of his ass. Canto 22. One of the grafters, an unidentified Navares, identified by early commentators as Champolo, is seized by the demons. And Virgil questions him. The sinner speaks of his fellow grafters. Friar Gomita, a corrupt friar in Galera eventually hanged by Nino Visconti. See Purg. 8. for accepting bribes to let prisoners escape, and Michele Zance, a corrupt vicar of Loggodoro under King Enzo of Sardinia. He offers to lure some of his fellow sufferers into the hands of the demons. And when his plan is accepted, he escapes back into the pitch. Alicino and Calcabrina start a brawl in midair and fall into the pitch themselves. And Barbaricha organizes a rescue party. Dante and Virgil take advantage of the confusion to slip away. Canto 23. Bolgia 6 Hypocrites. The poets escape the pursuing Malebranche by sliding down the sloping bank of the next pit. Here they find the hypocrites listlessly walking around a narrow track for eternity, weighted down by leaden robes. The robes are brilliantly gilded on the outside and are shaped like a monk's habit. The hypocrite's outward appearance shines brightly and passes for holiness. But under that show lies the terrible weight of his deceit. A falsity that weighs them down and makes spiritual progress impossible for them. Dante speaks with Catalano de Malevolti and Loderingo degli Andalo, two Bolognese brothers of the Jovial Friars, an order that had acquired a reputation for not living up to its vows and was eventually disbanded by papal decree. Friar Catalano points out Caiaphas, the high priest of Israel under Pontius Pilate, who counseled the Pharisees to crucify Jesus for the public good. John chapter 11 verses 49 to 50. He himself is crucified to the floor of hell by 3 large stakes, and in such a position that every passing sinner must walk upon him. He must suffer upon his body the weight of all the world's hypocrisy. The Jovial Friars explain to Virgil how he may climb from the pit. Virgil discovers that Malacoda lied to him about the bridges over the 6th Bolgia. Canto 24. Bolgia 7 Thieves. Dante and Virgil leave the Bolgia of the hypocrites by climbing the ruined rocks of a bridge destroyed by the great earthquake, after which they cross the bridge of the 7th Bolgia to the far side to observe the next chasm. The pit is filled with monstrous reptiles. The shades of thieves are pursued and bitten by snakes and lizards, who curl themselves about the sinners and bind their hands behind their backs. The full horror of the thieves' punishment is revealed gradually. Just as they stole other people's substance in life, their very identity becomes subject to theft here. One sinner, who reluctantly identifies himself as Vanni Fucci, is bitten by a serpent at the jugular vein, bursts into flames, and is reformed from the ashes like a phoenix. Vanni tells a dark prophecy against Dante. Canto 25. Vanni hurls an obscenity at God and the serpents swarm over him. The centaur Cacus arrives to punish him. He has a fire-breathing dragon on his shoulders and snakes covering his equine back. In Roman mythology, Cacus, the monstrous, fire-breathing son of Vulcan, was killed by Hercules for raiding the Heros cattle. In Aeneid 8. 193–267. Virgil did not describe him as a centaur. Dante then meets 5 noble thieves of Florence and observes their various transformations. Agnello Brunelleschi, in human form, is merged with the 6-legged serpent that is Chianva Donati, a figure named Buoso, perhaps either Buoso degli Abati or Buoso Donati, the latter of whom is mentioned in INF. XXX. 44. First appears as a man, but exchanges forms with Francesco de Cavalcanti, who bites Buoso in the form of a 4-footed serpent. Puccio Sciancato remains unchanged for the time being. Quote, Canto 26. Bolgia 8 Counselors of Fraud. Dante addresses a passionate lament to Florence before turning to the next Bolgia. Here, fraudulent advisors or evil counselors move about. hidden from view inside individual flames. These are not people who gave false advice, but people who used their position to advise others to engage in fraud. Ulysses and Diomedes are punished together within a great double-headed flame. They are condemned for the stratagem of the Trojan horse, resulting in the fall of Troy, for persuading Achilles to sail for Troy, causing Deidamia to die of grief, and for the theft of the sacred statue of Pallas, the Palladium, upon which, it was believed, the fate of Troy depended. Ulysses, the figure in the larger horn of the flame, narrates the tale of his last voyage and death, a creation of Dante's that illustrates the extent of his own pride despite his condemnation of this principal vice throughout the Divine Comedy. Ulysses tells how, after his detainment by Circe, his love for neither his son, his father, nor his wife could overpower his desire to set out on the open sea to gain experience of the world, and of the vices and the worth of men. As they approach the Pillars of Hercules, Ulysses urges his crew, "Consider well the seed that gave you birth. You were not made to live your lives as brutes, but to be followers of worth and knowledge." This passage exemplifies the danger of utilizing rhetoric without proper wisdom, a failing condemned by several of Dante's most prominent philosophical influences. Although Ulysses successfully convinces his crew to venture into the unknown, he lacks the wisdom to understand the danger this entails, leading to their death in a shipwreck after sighting Mount Purgatory in the southern hemisphere. Canto 27. Dante is approached by Guido da Montefeltro, head of the Ghibellines of Romagna, asking for news of his country. Dante replies with a tragic summary of the current state of the cities of Romagna. Guido then recounts his life. He advised Pope Boniface VIII to offer a false amnesty to the Colonna family, who, in 1297, had walled themselves inside the castle of Palestrina in the Lateran. When the Colonna accepted the terms and left the castle, the Pope razed it to the ground and left them without a refuge. Guido describes how Saint Francis, founder of the Franciscan order, came to take his soul to heaven, only to have a demon assert prior claim. Although Boniface had absolved Guido in advance for his evil advice, the demon points out the invalidity. Absolution requires contrition, and a man cannot be contrite for a sin at the same time that he is intending to commit it. Canto 28. Bolgia 9 Sowers of Discord. In the 9th Bolgia, the sowers of discord are hacked and mutilated for all eternity by a large demon wielding a bloody sword. Their bodies are divided as, in life, their sin was to tear apart what God had intended to be united. These are the sinners who are ready to rip up the whole fabric of society to gratify a sectional egotism. The souls must drag their ruined bodies around the ditch, their wounds healing in the course of the circuit, only to have the demon tear them apart anew. These are divided into 3 categories. I. Religious schism and discord. E. Civil strife and political discord. And E. Family disunion, or discord between kinsmen. Chief among the first category is Muhammad, the founder of Islam. His body is ripped from groin to chin, with his entrails hanging out. Dante apparently saw Muhammad as causing a schism within Christianity when he and his followers splintered off. Dante also condemns Muhammad's son-in-law, Ali, for schism between Sunni and Shiite. His face is cleft from top to bottom. Muhammad tells Dante to warn the schismatic and heretic Fra Dolcino. In the second category appeared E.A. Medicina. His throat slit, nose slashed off as far as the eyebrows, a wound where one of his ears had been. The Roman tribune Gaius Scribonius Curio who advised Caesar to cross the Rubicon and thus begin the civil war. His tongue is cut off. And Mosca de Lamberti, who incited the Amide family to kill Buondelmont de Buondelmonti, resulting in conflict between Guelphs and Ghibellines. His arms are hacked off. Finally, in the third category of sinner, Dante sees Bertrand born 1140 to 1215. The knight carries his severed head by its own hair, swinging it like a lantern. Bertrand is said to have caused a quarrel between Henry II of England and his son Prince Henry the Young King. His punishment in hell is decapitation, since dividing father and son is like severing the head from the body. Canto 29. Bolger 10 Falsifiers. The final bolger of the eighth circle is home to various sorts of falsifiers. Disease, on society. They are themselves afflicted with different types of afflictions. Horrible diseases. Stench, thirst, filth, darkness, and screaming. Some lie prostrate while others run hungering through the pit, tearing others to pieces. Shortly before their arrival in this pit, Virgil indicates that it is approximately noon of Holy Saturday, and he and Dante discuss one of Dante's kinsmen, Jerry de Bello, among the sowers of discord in the previous ditch. The first category of falsifiers Dante encounters are the alchemists, falsifiers of things. He speaks with two spirits viciously scrubbing and clawing at their leprous scabs. Grifolino di Arezzo, an alchemist who extracted money from the foolish Alberto da Siena on the promise of teaching him to fly. Alberto's reputed father, the Bishop of Siena, had Grifolino burned at the stake, and Capocchio, burned at the stake at Siena in 1293 for practicing alchemy. Canto XXX. Suddenly, two spirits, Gianni Schicchi Cavalcanti and Myrrh, both punished as impostors, falsifiers of persons, run rabid through the pit. Schicchi sinks his teeth into the neck of an alchemist, Capocchio, and drags him away like prey. Grifolino explains how Myrrh disguised herself to commit incest with her father King Cinyras, while Schicchi impersonated the dead Buoso Donati to dictator while giving himself several profitable bequests. Dante then encounters Master Adam of Brescia, one of the counterfeiters, falsifiers of money, for manufacturing Florentine florins of 21, rather than 24, carat gold. He was burned at the stake in 1281. He is punished by a loathsome dropsy-like disease, which gives him a bloated stomach, prevents him from moving, and an eternal, unbearable thirst. Master Adam points out two sinners of the fourth class: the perjurers, falsifiers of words. These are Potiphar's wife, punished for her false accusation of Joseph, Gen. 39-7-19. And Sinon, the Achaean spy who lied to the Trojans to convince them to take the Trojan horse into their city. Aeneid 2. 57-194. Sinon is here rather than in Bolger 8 because his advice was false as well as evil. Both suffer from a burning fever. Master Adam and Sinon exchange abuse, which Dante watches until he is rebuked by Virgil. As a result of his shame and repentance, Dante is forgiven by his guide. Sayers remarks that the descent through Malibolge began with the sale of the sexual relationship, and went on to the sale of church and state. Now, the very money is itself corrupted. Every affirmation has become perjury, and every identity a lie, so that every aspect of social interaction has been progressively destroyed.